What if that little voice in your head wasn't just you? What if it was a direct line to some kind of higher consciousness? Well, in this explainer, we're diving into the incredible story of Bob Jacobs, an entrepreneur whose entire life has been shaped by a mysterious presence he first heard after a trauma in his childhood. So, it all kicks off with one single defining moment. As Bob puts it himself, a really traumatic event didn't just leave a mark on him. It actually opened up a doorway to something he never could have expected.
Yeah, this wasn't just some bad memory he had to deal with. It was the actual starting point for a lifelong connection to a presence he'd eventually come to see as his mentor and his own personal navigation system. And you've got to understand, this wasn't like a one-and-done thing. Nope, this was the beginning of an ongoing conversation, a dialogue with a source that started feeding him this completely different, multi-dimensional way of seeing how the world actually works.
Okay, so if this voice has been his guide for pretty much his whole life, the big question is, what is it? Or who is it? Well, Bob has a name for it: soul. So let's unpack what he means by that.
Now, this is a really key point. According to Bob, soul isn't a person or some, spirit talking to him. He describes it as a field of energy. And it doesn't communicate in English or any other language, but in these transmissions, almost like light or data, that he had to learn how to translate.
And what's so fascinating is that he doesn't describe this as some vague, mystical feeling. He actually breaks it down into this clear four-step process you see here. He says he was basically trained by soul to receive, listen, interpret, and then translate. And he thinks it's a skill that, hey, maybe anyone could learn.
All right, so let's say you have a direct line to a multidimensional energy field. What do you do with that? Well, for Bob Jacob, the answer was pretty clear. You build a whole public mission around the information you're getting.
And he didn't just, write a book and call it a day. He built this entire ecosystem to get soul's wisdom out into the world. You're talking Co-Creation Global, a media company, live events, all of it designed to bring these big ideas into the mainstream.
So you can see how it all connects, right? What started as this deeply personal private experience for a 10-year-old kid slowly transformed into this huge public mission to help empower other people with this idea that we're all co-creators of our own reality.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little abstract. So to bring it back down to earth, Soul offers this really powerful way of looking at a huge part of our lives, our work. It's where we spend so much of our time, but do we really get what's happening there?
And this slide just lays it all out. This is Soul's perspective on the modern workplace, and it draws this super sharp contrast. On one side, you've got the unconscious business. It's all about profit, power, and what does it lead to? Burnout and crushed creativity.
The metaphor Soul uses here is just wow, it's so direct. The modern workplace is a pressure cooker. This constant, relentless push for short-term gains creates an environment where, as the quote says, we are cooking the people. I mean, that leads directly to the anxiety and burnout so many of us feel. Sound familiar?
And the consequences of this pressure cooker are massive. According to Soul, our work has actually become the single biggest source of mental health challenges today. It's a system that so often turns people into just cogs in a machine, stripping away their sense of purpose. So you're probably wondering, okay, but how do we get stuck in these draining, high-pressure jobs in the first place? Well, Soul's answer isn't about bad luck or a tough job market. It all comes down to one powerful fundamental concept: resonance.
But before we get to the answer, just pause for a second and really think about that. I mean, beyond the paycheck, why are you really where you are right now?
Okay, so here's Soul's pretty radical answer. It's not luck, it's not a coincidence. You are an attractor. You have been drawn to your current job because it resonates with something that is already inside of you. Your strengths, sure, but also, and this is the crucial part, your unresolved issues and your limitations.
So think of it this way. Your entire work environment is basically a giant mirror. That manager that drives you crazy, the frustrating coworker, the toxic company culture. Soul's perspective is that they are all reflecting back to you parts of your own inner world that need your attention.
And this leads to a really profound takeaway. Just quitting your job and getting a new one often isn't the real solution. True, lasting change comes from changing the inner resonance that attracted you there in the first place. In other words, when you change your inner world, the outer world, that mirror, has no choice but to change too.
And that leaves us with the core idea from this whole explainer. It's not just information, it's really an invitation, a question to carry with you.
What is your work life mirroring back to you? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.